Hi, I'm Bo Derek. Welcome to the ultimate year of the 70s. You're going to love it. It's 1979.
Radio, video, movie with a suitcase. You're living in a disco. Forget about the rat race. Let's do the milkshake and sell it like a hotcake. Try some, buy some, beat by both. Talk about pop music. Talk about pop music.
Pop music, pop, pop music, pop, pop, pop music, pop, pop, pop music. Shooby-dooby-doo-wop,
I wanna dedicate it.
pop, pop, shoo-wop,
Everybody made it.
shooby-dooby-doo-wop,
Infiltrate it.
pop, pop, shoo-wop.
Activate it. New York, London, Paris, Munich. Everybody talk about pop music. Talk about pop music.
1979, a year I'll never forget. Nobody will let me forget it. It's the year I played the perfect 10, and life would never be the same again. It was an excellent year, the last great year of a great decade. It was almost the perfect ending.
Just go like that.
Oh, God.
Thank you.
In 1979, kids got the ultimate puzzle. You were nobody unless you had a Rubik's Cube and the brain to do it. Suddenly, nerds were on top. It was cool to cube and hip to be square.
Now, as I mentioned, I was given one of these puzzles for Christmas, and it's been driving me absolutely mad.
This is the rubric cube.
Go!
Stop the clock!
Yeah. Have you brought anything back for culture vouchers from New York?
This is the new irritating, infuriating toy. The game is to try and get all sides one colour.
You had to be really bright to do it.
It's all about, Mr. Smart.
And I thought I was, so I thought I'd hack it, no trouble at all.
And I had to show my smartness off in other ways.
Gave it about 10 minutes, realised I was hopelessly out of depth, and never looked at it again, actually.
I have to have really thick glasses on and an Adam's apple. I look like a young Bamba Gascoigne in order to do it.
Hold the cube.
You can remember your first kiss. You can remember your first drink and your first smoke. But for some reason, you can always remember the first kid in your class at school who managed to do this.
Mark Becker, brother of Lana Becker.
There was a lad called Colin Whitehouse.
Cooper Smith is in prison now.
I remember there was a very, very bookish boy in my class who was very good at maths.
Captain of the football team, best at biology.
And he did the Rubik's Cube and then immediately was beaten up.
The fastest was only ever once when I was 13. I managed to do it in 23 seconds. And I was in front of the whole of my class at school and it was timed on the stopwatch and everyone went crazy with applause. I can't really explain what it is I'm doing. Once you feel for the cube, you begin to pick up your own little techniques of how to spin them round.
No boy that played with this you'd ever want to snog at the disco.
Quiet, Daniel! Quiet! Will you never be still with your devilish noise day and night?
So, good luck and let's get cubing.
I went skiing in Switzerland on a family holiday. I had 2 weeks of sitting in a chalet with nothing to do. And when I got back to the UK, I was still the first person in the UK that I knew of with a cube, and I even had the solution to it as well.
This book has been one of the publishing sensations of the year, bought by more than 1 million people, making it the fastest seller since Lady Chatterley's Lover.
So when I got back to school, I published the solution. That got into the hands of a publisher, who was actually Penguin Books, who thought it was brilliant.
Patrick Bossert is almost certainly the world's most successful 13-year-old author.
So I took 2 weeks off school, and it was the first book to get to the market by about a week.
If your cube is scrambled up, do not open it up, as if you put one piece in the wrong way, no matter how hard you try, you will not be able to solve the cube.
And I actually remember like trying to work out like a method if I could break it open.
I put it on the floor and I smashed it up.
What was the point when you could just pick off the stickers and put them all round the right way so you'd have an all red side and an all yellow side?
Puzzle Corner is buzzing with a whole new range of products. The Circus 7, the Varicone Pyramid, the Missing Cube puzzle. But in the last few months, it's the Snake, yet another invention of Rubik that's moving up the toy top 10.
He had loads, Rubik's Maze and Rubik's Snake and Rubik's. They were all flops, though. And they tried bringing it back, this, but I think, you know, I think there's more chance of bringing it back hanging.
One television show in 1979 changed the way people got out of their cars. Who needs doors when you're in Hazard County? The Duke boys had the car, Daisy had the legs, and the rest was Boss Hogg.
Saturday tea times, 5:15 or 5:45 it were, we'd have football results, we'd have a full English breakfast, and then Dukes of Hazzard.
Just a good old boy, never meaning no harm.
The basic premise of Dukes of Hazzard? You've got to be kidding.
The most basic premise of the Dukes of Hazzard is that there's a family called the Dukes who live in Hazard County that is a corrupt county.
Bo, he was the simple one. He was the one who all the girls fancied, and he wasn't that bright. Luke was a little bit older, a little bit wiser. They were always getting into scrapes with not only the law, but the local bigwig, who's a character called Boss Hogg. And with the help of Daisy Duke, they would try and foil his game.
Daisy Duke is Bo and Luke's cousin.
I wish you was on the menu.
She drives like Richard Petty, shoots like Annie Oakley, and knows the words to all of Dolly Parton's songs.
She was by far the most beautiful woman on television, but she didn't know it.
Every kid's first introduction to wanton passion. When Daisy walked on, you know that you would sit with your dad, and if I was sat like leaning against my dad like that, I'd get hot tea down back in my neck.
Catherine Bach actually made her uniform, made the gingham top and made the shorts.
And those shorts. Those shorts.
Oh, it's Daisy.
Boys I know have said that if I would dress up in short denim shorts and a wrap-up top, then they would marry me.
You turn around and try and picture a dinner lady in the same kind of cut-off denim shorts, and it didn't work. You think, oh God, it'd be hanging out everywhere, wouldn't it?
Those famous legs of yours, have you had to have them insured?
I didn't, the studio did, because,
What did they get them insured for? How much, do you know?
$20 million.
In the papers, and my mum was going mad about it, just going, that's just not practical. You can't keep your house clean and not expect to get a bruise on your leg.
I used to say, oh, I think I scratched myself. Is this a couple $100,000 there?
She doesn't strike me as the type of woman who does housework, Mum. If you look that good, you know what I mean? I'd be scrubbing steps if it meant a night of passion with her.
Catherine never played Daisy as if she knew that she was anything but another Duke boy. She could punch you in the face and knock your lights out just like Bo or Luke.
Get your cotton picking paws off.
I finally got hold. I think I'll just hang on. Nice, I can.
Daisy Duke saved the day. She always saved her cousins.
Hey, Jerry, I'm not sure about that. No, we weren't cousins. I'd marry you.
He's never stopped anyone in this family before.
The two brothers. I always had a thing about them of what was the score there? Because they weren't bad-looking lads, but they really enjoyed their own company in their own car, didn't they?
Crazy gooder talking turkey coming right down my alley.
I'm having a picnic. Which way to the beach?
He had a cousin like Daisy, and they preferred to go off driving. Something wrong there.
For me, it would have been like kissing my brother.
I want those slot machines.
Now we got him! We got him!
Making their way the only way they know how. I wish those Duke boys were on my side.
Bob Hogg was the kind of Henry VIII character.
He was just so naked in his ambition for money and power and greed and anything that he could put in his mouth. I mean, he just was a wild man.
Being a kid that was kind of with bad glands, it did become a nickname that I learnt to hate. And there was no way that I would wear anything white, you know what I mean? Because anything like that would just be like, Boss Hogg, hee! That would send me home in tears quite a few times. Because I never had the physique to be one of the lads.
Happy birthday, Daisy.
Why, thank you, Ian.
In the South, there are many unusual names, and we had several of them in the show.
I do believe there are people called Enos, but not that many, and I think that was deliberate. I think they realised that it might sound like something else.
Cletus.
Which could be very rude indeed. Daisy Duke was often described as full of spunk.
Meant that she was someone to be admired, not someone who had been admired.
When I was young, I lived just outside a town called Hassocks, and me and two friends were the Dukes of Hassocks. We didn't have the General Lee, but we did have BMX bikes.
Our car, the General Lee, a '69 Dodge Charger, bright orange with an 01 on the side, has become the most famous car in the world.
Dukes of Hazzard cars seem to jump over rivers. Like that.
I've never heard of him going on a panel beating course. So how the hell does it manage to look so good all the time?
We had about maybe 20 of those cars at any given time. And if I broke one, they'd give me another one. I'd go out and try to break it too. When you take a 3,500-pound car and you fling it through the air and then land it on the ground, you never drive it away. Through the magic of editing, we cut to another shot. You know, we're inside the car, we go like this, and then we cut to another shot outside, and there goes a nice, pristine General Lee.
My dad went mad once with us trying to climb in without opening the doors. You know, he's like, what are you doing? You know, you just like, it's how the Duke's doing. He's like, I've just took that through car wash.
Just a good old boy. Wouldn't change if they could. A nail, bow, and loop do. Fighting the system like a two-bar Robin Hood.
Welcome to Hazard County.
Matchbox announced the nearest thing yet to the thrills of a real-life car chase. Matchbox Race and Chase. It's the only slot car set that lets you U-turn, like real cars. You can jump. You can race. And you can actually control those U-turns. Matchbox Race and Chase, the first car chase that's safe for kids.
We loved denim in the 70s. We couldn't get enough of it. But in 1979, things suddenly changed. Jeans got rich, and designer labels began.
From New York City, home of America's most famous monuments, most famous landmarks, most famous skyscrapers, come America's most famous designer jeans. Jeans?
Yes, jeans. Hello. I'm Gloria Vanderbilt, and I design America's best-selling designer jeans, right here in New York.
Nobody had heard of Gloria Vanderbilt, except she had this millionaire surname. So they were kind of millionaire jeans.
What kind of jeans have you got?
Dazzling colors and flattering styles that shape your waist, hug your hips, don't gap here.
I don't know what kind of woman she designed those jeans for, but I wasn't one of them.
They're the tops, they're the upper stratas, they're the jeans with the social status.
I mean, at the time, we were still sort of scraping up pocket money to buy a pair of jeans for $5 from the market. So things like designer jeans were so out of our league.
Silvered caddies, they're for girls blessed with wealthy daddies. They're the jeans that fit when you stand or sit. They don't stop because Gloria Vanderbilt bottoms all the top.
I remember like stretched denim being this thing where that it was kind of, you know, like a new discovery that was going to change people's lives and help people. You know, it had a kind of a medicinal value to it.
the stretch denim indigo jeans, the most unattractive jeans of all time.
You had to have long legs, small hips, and a pert bum.
No matter how big your bum was, no matter how wide your thighs were, no matter how skinny they were, it just didn't matter.
Because what you do is buy not one size too small, but at least 2 sizes too small.
And things bulged out all over, you know, there were the big bits of thigh sticking out there and, you know, bits of bum sticking out here.
And then you kind of zip the whole thing up, trying not to get any skin in it, sucking everything in as much as you possibly could.
You were like sealed in. It was fantastic. And they were drain piped as well, so they did give the illusion of a slightly long leg.
And then, of course, you couldn't stand up.
They were so tight, I used to walk in a very strange way, with very small steps.
And the one thing you didn't want to do while you were out is go to the toilet. Because the idea of getting stuck in the toilet and not being able to get your jeans back on was the most horrific nightmare ever.
When girls wore them, it was bad enough. But when boys wore them, they may as well have been naked. A 17-year-old boy in a pair of stretch naked jeans wasn't good. It was all there. What can I say?
Romantic lady, single baby.
In 1979, one British film caused a sensation. It sold records, it got people fighting on beaches, hell, it even made scooters fashionable. Quadrophenia wasn't just a movie, it was a way of life.
Quadrophenia, I did think was the most amazing film. And I thought Phil Daniels was just the coolest man alive. I think all the films that have been out about youth culture around that time, Saturday Night Fever, Grease, were all about Americans. And the thing about Quadrophenia, it was an English film, it was about British people.
Quadrophenia was an event, even during production. The NME would be full of stuff about it.
So we knew that we were in the picture of the year as soon as we started shooting. The cast of Quadrophenia was quite a clever piece of work on Frank Rodham's part. Frank Rodham was the director.
It was an extremely good cast for the day, and it's a testament to them, I think, when you realise how many of them, young actors at the time, still have careers today. You had people like Phil Daniels, who's had great success, Leslie Ash, who's had great success, Mark Wingett, who's now Carver in The Bill, John Altman, who became Nasty Nick Cotton in EastEnders, and Ray Winston, who's now one of our leading actors, appearing very naked in a bath.
Why don't you just fuck off? Yeah, fuck off. Oh, let's have some.
We were all relatively unknown, but we were still very much the Brit Brat Pack. And they did this wonderful poster of us lined up. And within about 10 years, all of us have made our own name within our own right.
Steph! What? You going Brighton this weekend?
Yeah, you?
Of course I am.
And it was just so exciting seeing a movie that was set in Brighton. Never been to Brighton in my life at the time, but it felt a lot closer to me than anything I'd seen in the cinema before.
The filmmakers put out an advert across the country for mods to come and be part of the famous reenacting of the Mods and Rockers riots. And I remember on the day getting up and the manager just going, I don't know what to do. I do not know how to get round this. There's 5,000 people out there and they all want to be involved. And it was as if among us, among the 5,000, we said, yes, it's okay. I really don't mind being hit. Let's go for it. And we did.
And I think the fact that they actually used the real actors and they seem to be in there actually hitting each other and pulling each other's hair out, basically, adds to the realism of it, and it's what's needed in the film.
You couldn't tell on the side streets who were members of the public and who were actors. And I can remember on one occasion going for a policeman and he went for me, and there was this look between us, and I said, "Are you for real?" And he said, "No, I'm an actor." So we just went, bosh, you know, and we were in there.
I went to see it at the ABC Cinema in Wigan, and it was easily, I've never ever been involved in an atmosphere of such simmering violence and menace in my life. It was fantastic. There was sporadic violence in the queue for the hot dogs before we got in there, involving the police and ambulance. And whenever a mod got their head kicked in, the bikers would stand up and cheer. And whenever a biker got his head kicked in, the mods would all stand up and cheer. And then sporadically, like bricks would be thrown across the cinema, and people would get hit with chains, and fistfights would break out. Boy, it was an exciting way to watch a movie. You can't anymore, I don't think, get beaten up at the bus stop for liking the wrong kind of pop music. But you could in the 70s. People would come up and say, "Do you like Slade or T-Rex?" If you said the wrong thing, they'd hit you.
The violence was all very exciting and exhilarating. There was Leslie Ash, even though she was wearing this crazy wig that didn't do her any favours, managed to get Phil Daniels away from all that at an upper back alley where they shagged.
Leslie Ash within the film was an object of lust, and I could remember her getting really quite pent up and worried about the quickie scene because everyone wanted to be there. Word did filter back to our hotel that it was greatly enjoyed, and it was aesthetically very pleasing.
I've been to that alley in Brighton. I've actually been there now. You know where he gets it on with Steph. Like, it's a bit quick. Well, Phil Daniels, like, I'd have asked for a longer edit.
In the meantime, back at the hotel, where the rest of us were all staying, the hotel became a den of iniquity.
Dave, leave it out, Jim, will you? Give us a break.
The cast and certain members of the cast got through other members of the cast very quickly.
What are you doing? What do you think I'm doing? Oh, yeah, where have I seen that face before?
There were stories filtering through of who had who which night, and I think by the end of the filming, everyone had had each other.
Piss off, will you? I'm sorry.
Bellboy, I gotta get running now. Bellboy, keep my lip button down. Bellboy, carry this baggage out. Bellboy, bellboy.
And I remember the end, because I didn't like the end, because it went all weird and druggy, and I thought, what's going on here now? He put a lot of makeup on and drove the bike off a cliff, didn't he? I remember that the end was seen a bit of a cop-out. It seemed a bit of a mysterious and thought-provoking end, and I don't like thought-provoking ends.
They almost kept the ending secretive, but I did hear that Phil was so crazy, and he was pretty devoted to doing the film, and he was very much in character most of the time, that he went so dangerously close to the cliff edge that people thought he might have gone over.
Our kid did push his bike off the youth club roof. You know, like Jimmy at the end. My dad went mad.
I went to see the final cut and the press showing with Sting, and within minutes we realised we'd all been cut from the picture, and it had become, quite rightly, a film about one character's point of view, and that was Phil Daniels. But at the time, we were so egotistical, we were so determined to have careers in our own rights, we reacted quite badly, and all of us walked out. And I've never seen the film since.
Say I'm green. I've seen things you've never seen. Talk behind my back.
Say 70s and dolls, and you think of Cindy and Barbie. But there was another doll who gave those girls a run for their money. Holly Hobbie.
Oh, God. Holly Hobbie was a doll that looked like that.
The kind of doll that nice little girls would have.
There is something really nice about having a floppy doll. Look, she can do the splits. Hey!
Holly Hobbie was a very down-home look.
Her most notable feature was she didn't have a nose.
Everyone
attractively impoverished.
Freckles, like really cute freckles. And she had like a tiny little button mouth.
Just this dwarf doll.
Just like birds of a feather, I won't tell no lie.
She was always advertised being slightly on the side, slightly coy, slightly Amish, and all you could see was like a little plaque coming out.
Just let me stay for the record.
They immediately appealed to the grandparents because they used to imagine that it could be their own daughter, their granddaughter, underneath the bonnet.
Holly Hobbie was the doll probably the most merchandised. I remember I had Holly Hobbie duvet cover and pillowcases.
Holly Hobbie big key rings.
Holly Hobbie writing paper.
Holly Hobbie bed caps.
They were on plates.
Holly Hobbie bath caps.
They were on aprons, slippers.
Holly Hobbie socks, Holly Hobbie pants, Holly Hobbie duvet, Holly Hobbie wallpaper. Holly Hobbie just became everything.
People used to think that it was a sort of lovely, shy Victorian child. But I actually think she must have been a right little goer, because they're always the worst, aren't they, the shy ones.
One can hardly have failed to notice the record industry's recent flirtation with different packaging, principally with coloured vinyl and picture disc.
People who didn't like the record in the first place not only had one version of it, but they then had 2 or 3 versions of it because of picture disc, because of coloured vinyl.
Roxanne and the other first 3 Police singles had been issued before and had not sold. But when they were reissued on picture disc, that catapulted them into the chart, and the rest is history.
Well, this next act, they're called Tubeway Army, and this is their new single, Our Friends Electric.
So at this time, any act that had an obsessive following, like Tubeway Army, for instance, would go out and buy anything and everything.
Well, I bought the picture disc and got it home and saw the man's face on the picture disc, and I knew that this was the man I was going to love forever.
But it broke me, without a doubt. At that time, Top of the Pops were doing a thing called Bubbling Under, where they would take a record that was outside the chart. That week, because of the picture disc, we got Top of the Pops, and I think 3 or 4 weeks later we were #1.
The picture disc was sold out within days.
You knew that every week the Newman fan would be back to buy this week's edition of whatever the single was, and they were obsessive.
And I wonder what I'm doing in a room like this. There's a knock on the door.
And the point of Gary Newman, obviously, was that he was future, pretentious, electronic. And you could tell all that because he had shoulder pads and a side parting.
You were never sure if he had a wig on or not.
The only thing I remember about Gary Newman, dance-wise, is that he went like that.
And the great thing about Gary Newman was that all his stuff sounded like it was played with one finger.
Dum, dum, dum. It was just one way of like winding up the family, just sitting there going dum, dum, dum. You don't stop that, we might have to lock you in the shed again.
Because this is what's so galling for people who've spent years studying at the Conservatoire in Paris, and they finish up playing in wine bars in Dulwich. And Gary Newman can play with one finger, and he ends up playing Wembley Stadium.
In cars!
I'd been watching Top of the Pops for years, and everybody would always look at the camera, wherever it went, and always look happy and bright, and so it was just great, you know. And it didn't suit the sort of music I was doing to look like that, and it didn't suit the sort of persona I wanted to be.
I wonder if he's like the life and soul of the part, and then you think, no, he's not. Look at him. He's got in fights as a kid, and it's left him damaged.
Here in my car, I know I've started to think about leaving tonight, although nothing seems right in cars.
I think I'm reasonably normal. I had a few problems when I was a kid. Interacting properly When you're having a conversation, this man says something, this man says something, and there are parameters which within that conversation flows, and I'm not good at that apparently.
You used to wonder if you sort of, walked around the streets like that in the boiler suit and walked into a pub, all right, mate, half a mile.
I'm down to walking on out. I was trying to be strange and interesting, and it just come across as being a wanker. By my side. I got sent a live bullet in the post. That scared me a little bit because they're not easy to get hold of.
When I was at school, my friend Tracy, she loved David Bowie. I love Gary Newman, and everyone was asked what they wanted to do when we left school. And we said, well, we don't need jobs. She's going to marry David Bowie and I'm going to marry Gary Newman. That's us sorted. When we got married to each other, we had our rings inscribed to each other, and I had mine inscribed to Gary with thank you for making all my dreams come true.
In 1979, a TV show appeared out of the mystical East. It had strange faces with strange voices. It was kung fu with a disco beat. It was monkey magic.
In the worlds before monkey, primal chaos reigned.
Monkey magic, and it were, weren't it, eh? Opening credits, very similar to Bergerac.
The four worlds formed again and yet again.
And it go in on this monkey island, and it's just like Bergerac. It's exactly the same. I have no life.
The nature of monkey was irrepressible.
The funkiest monkey that ever walked. Born from an egg on a mountain top. Monkey magic.
Quiet, quiet.
Monkey was a Japanese TV program for kids, which was supposedly set in ancient China.
Obviously, he's a warrior, so what else does he need to be irresistible?
The spine of the story is this young, innocent monk who wants to go make this journey to the West. He went along and he took with him a monkey, a pig, and a monster. These were sort of animals with human attributes and magical qualities.
I hate you! You're a pig, you are!
Well, you knew that. This is the pig that loves you.
Monkey was the cool one. He was quite fiery. And he had incredible sideburns, which gave him the look of a 70s Jason King sex god.
I'll book later.
I wore sideburns, which many people thought were real, but actually they were false. Whenever we were filming, they would just stick them on.
He's one here 1 minute, and he's there the next minute, and he jumps.
He looked like a proper geek, right? And he was dead hard, which I like that.
What was all that about? I don't know, he's like he's eating a chip and it's too hot.
Take me to your leader!
He had a stick that could grow.
Bigger stick!
On one occasion, I was doing an action scene with a stick, pointing it towards the camera, and I accidentally hit the cameraman. It was nothing personal. He may have thought I hated him, but of course I didn't.
And he had a little cloud he could magic up and fly around on a cloud.
My cloud! Right! To the north!
In those days, there were no computer graphics, so the special effects were, how shall I put it, not brilliant.
And he had this thing on his head that used to go tight whenever he got in trouble with God.
Let me out of here! Learn patience.
I don't know, we're only 6. I don't know what they were about. He'd have a stick and he'd grow and he'd fly around on a cloud. Off his head.
You're not a real princess.
And a real dragon on occasion.
Daughter.
A father, I should say.
I did a lot of film dubbing in my earlier years. I can't remember any of the characters that I had to do, except a Japanese princess.
Oh, really? It can get even larger, but it does get smaller, too.
You have to look very closely at the character whose voice you're supposed to be finding.
Stick, grow little, grow smaller.
Whether they're angry or passionate or having sex.
I can use it as well.
Oh, I never doubted it. Passionate primate.
Big or small, that's useful.
So sometimes when you have to do little squeaks and giggles, it helps if you're touched by your fellow actors. And I was.
Oh, go on, make it bigger.
Yes, big again. It works! Let's try half size now.
In that case, sir, His Sacred Celestial Majesty...
European languages, the sounds are roughly the same. Now, with Japanese, it's almost impossible.
Where you can be rewarded according to your just deserts.
Oh, well, put it this way. At the time, I think it was my glue stiffing stage, and I was the official translator for Monkey.
Such rudeness and bad manners, there's no excuse at all. Even so, I might just let you off on one little condition.
Hello, Monkey. You come here. I want to talk to you.
Anyone can be enlightened. You can, so you should.
It's very serious stuff, actually. But the way the Chinese shot it, it seemed almost risible.
One must be careful about learning about Buddhism from television entertainment shows, because everything is always grossly oversimplified.
I am Tathagata Buddha.
I always thought you were a fella.
I don't remember the song.
If most of you boys had my poster on your wall in 1979, then most of you girls had one very special boy. He was slim, he was pretty, and he was made for dancing all night long.
The next artist is a young man from California. I know you will like Leif Garrett.
I remember doing a big debate at school, but actually no, it's not Leif, it's Leif.
I always pronounced him Leaf at the time. I think there was a guy called Leif Erikson who was in the High Chaparral as well.
I could introduce myself, say, hi, Leif, nice to meet you. Hey, Leif, what's up? Aren't you Leif Erikson?
Leif Garrett was one of the last of those American teeny bop idols, who I suppose kind of started with David Cassidy.
He was a big heartthrob. I mean, he was very 70s to look at him.
I remember him looking a bit like an Afghan hound. But he was music, wasn't he?
The teeth was a big thing. I'd never seen such nice teeth. And he kind of looked all like he'd just sort of got out of the surf.
My image at that time was sort of California, you know, beach kid, whatever.
At 8 years old, I think I was just starting to have sort of certain feelings, and he aroused them.
It was definitely played up upon making the most girls wet their pants. Whether that's true or not, I don't know.
About 200 girls packed the shops, hoping to glimpse their latest idol, 16-year-old Leif Garrett. 6 were treated by the St. John's Ambulance Brigade for hysteria when they got excited, fainted, and drowned in the sea of people.
25, we've got Leif Garrett just for the girls now, and I was made for dancing.
You got me rolling like a wheel on a road, turning round and round, nowhere to go. I got to find out if you...
When I Was Made for Dancing came out, I don't know if it was the particular song that I liked. I think it was just the fact that Leif Garrett was singing it.
Dancing was top 5. We did Top of the Pops and staying at the Terrace Suite at the Dorchester Hotel, which was amazing.
and he was quite a bad dancer, which was ironic. I was made for dancing, he quite patently wasn't, was he? It was all trial by fire, you know. I'd never done music before.
We hung at Studio 54, and he was really, I don't even think he was legal by American terms then, but we hung out every night together.
Whether I was an adult or not, it was irrelevant. It was like, hey kid, you know, what do you want? You know, you want drugs? Do you want girls? Do you want booze? What do you want?
It was a whole party in 1978 and 79. And it was nightly overindulgence. You do it till you can't do it no more, and then when you get up, start again.
Leif and his friends lived life in the fast lane, but it all went wrong. One night, Leif was driving back with Roland. He swerved off the freeway and down an 80-foot embankment. Both survived, but with a high cost.
In the accident, Roland was paralyzed from the waist down.
What's up?
It wasn't until a little over a year ago that I finally was able to meet up with Roland after a 20-year period.
I just wanted to see what he looked like after all those years. And I didn't recognize him.
And we hooked up, and he'd said that I saved his life, and I was like, no, I mean, I don't know how you can say that.
Well, I thanked him for that car wreck, and the reason why I did that is I wasn't going to live long, living like I was indestructible. He had no idea how to handle that. He wasn't prepared for it in the least. And I knew it. I knew that he wasn't going to, which was part of the reason why I did it.
You know, lying around on the beach all day, hot and thirsty, having sand kicked in your face, you feel in need of a little revitalisation.
Anything with alcohol on was considered bad for children, so Top Deck Shandy, I wasn't allowed to have it.
Top Deck Shandy, now, if you have one that's just like Proust's Madeleine, you're immediately taken back to those hot summers of Noel Edmonds playing Gene Genie.
Now, Top Deck not only makes you feel like a new man, it crushes your thirst like no other can.
Nothing tastes as good as a can of ice-cold Top Deck Shandy from the newsagent's fridge when you've just been playing 50-a-side football in the park for 3.5 hours.
Excuse me.
Yes?
Do you have the time, please?
It's got 2% alcohol in it. That means that if I drink 50 cans of it, that's like drinking a pint of bitter. I'll be drunk, not realising, of course, if you drink 50 cans of Top Deck Shandy, you'll be spending the next week in the loo.
Top Deck in 3 flavours crushes your thirst like no other can.
In the late 70s, there was a new sound for every year. There was disco, there was punk, there was new wave, but then in 79 there was ska, the heavy, heavy monster sound.
When Two-Tone happened for us, it was the most amazing thing because it was the first thing that had been ours. The thing about punk is it was a very small thing that affected a very few people in London, and it was over very quickly. There were kind of kids in bedrooms thinking something happened and I kind of missed it.
I mean, a lot of punk was built on reggae and anger, and Two-Tone took those things and made them poppier.
One of the great things about being in Madness was that none of us had been in bands before, and none of us really had any idea what the music business was supposed to be.
You're playing in the wrong key or something? No, I'm not. I'm playing the same key as always.
I heard this story about how Lee didn't have nearly enough money for his saxophone.
Hello? This is nice. Yeah, it's nice, really nice. Oh, hello. Seems to have happened here. Number seems to have been scratched off.
And so he had a friend who worked in a music shop who showed him how to get in one night.
He was in the shop? Yeah. And he just happened to have a sax? Yeah. Well,
and he got in and he was about to take the saxophone from the shop display, and he had his hands on it, and just at that time he saw a policeman walking past in the street, and so he just stayed there and stood very still and got away with it.
Next time you come in, bring the bill of sale in, eh?
Okay, yeah, I'll do that.
Lovely.
I'll bring it in tomorrow.
There was definitely a bit of light-fingeredness in the band.
Hey, you! Don't watch that! Watch this! This is the heavy, heavy monster sound!
Yeah, we were very fortunate. Such a brilliantly exciting and so fast. You know, really talking about one summer, going from just playing in a pub to your mates to suddenly being on a bus with the Specials and the Selector.
One step beyond!
In 1 month, you had On My Radio by Selector, Message to You Rudy by The Specials, and after that, Madness and One Step Beyond, all suddenly cramming into the charts.
And every band was trying to outdo each other in a live performance, you know. And it was pretty mad. I mean, in those days, everyone wanted to get on stage.
But visually, they were very, very striking, and that was part of their mission, to sell you the visual as much as the sound. Two Tone came along and introduced a way to dance.
You know, when you saw Madness dance on Stop the Pop, you said, I can do this, you know, it's just very simple, you just go like that. So I think that's one of the reasons, people don't realise that, one of the reasons it was embraced so much by people was the fact that it was easier to dance to.
And in fact, my hand has been shaken on a number of occasions by people who thank me, in part, for making blokes dance again.
The dance was an amalgam of the vaudeville aspect, you know. I mean, we were real fans of Tommy Cooper and Max Wall, and I mixed that with the fact that Skins used to sort of pull on their braces when you danced to reggae. And also, I'd done a bit of martial arts, so you sort of went, pow, and all this stuff.
The way that the Brits would do it would be much more regimentary. It's almost like being in the army, and so you could see like troops almost there doing this.
Sort of like Bez, but more. It was more speed instead of E.
I used to have a dance which I used to do with a roadie called Chalky, where we used to dance to Swan Lake. We'd headbutt each other. I remember we played at Eric's up in Liverpool, and this scouse was going, oh, you're not really doing it. I went, come on up and have some then, mate. And he went off with a sore head. It ended up in a fight afterwards, of course, but anyway.
What we used to wear wasn't that far away from what a school uniform was. I do remember kids liking the whole black and white thing a lot, and like penciling it on pencil cases.
It had punk sensibilities because it was fast, the dancing was aggressive. But what happened was everybody was smartening up, so it was a white shirt, the black tie, the badges were just this little black and white two-tone, and it all became a bit uniform.
And there's that whole thing of making your tie skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. In our school as well, you used to pull the threads out, so you only got 2 colours instead of 3, because it looked cooler that way.
And also the pork pie hats, the whole kind of image was very cool. If you're a little kid, it's great. And Madness in particular kind of cultivated that.
We were just noticing more and more when we were playing ordinary venues. There'd suddenly be this wild pack of under 15-year-olds who couldn't get in. And so we had the notion of playing matinees, which was often wilder than the one in the evening.
I remember doing one in Tiffany's in Coventry. It was like in the middle of the afternoon with all these little toddlers. They're growing up and they're hearing it, they're seeing it on top of the pops. They're seeing people walking down the street with black and white checks. And you're on stage, you can see them, you know, they're thinking, oh yeah, wow, this is what I always wanted.
And now, the continuing saga of Cindy in Dollhouse. The story so far. Cindy, the hostess with the mostest, rounds off her housewarming party with a game of sardines and spends hours looking for her guests. Where in her fabuloso new pad could they be? Had sardines turned into something fishier? Had the whole evening gone down the pan? Don't miss the next mind-blowing adventure of Cindy in Dollhouse.
The sensation after 10 was instant. It was literally overnight. Sometimes it was like out of the Beatles film Hard Day's Night, where people see you in the streets and this gang starts running down the street and you're looking for some place to hide. It was that extreme. I was born in Long Beach, which is in Southern California, and growing up was fantastic. I really found surfing and going to the beach a lot more interesting, so I went to the beach a lot more than I went to school. Modeling sort of kept coming to me because I was kind of pretty, and acting had started to come to me already.
In her late teens, Bo met and married John Derek, who was seen very much as a Svengali figure. He'd previously been married to Ursula Andress and Linda Evans, two actresses who looked very similar to Bo Derek in slightly older versions.
Well, 10 came about. I wasn't acting. I had no agent, no ambition. John read it and said, if you were ready, if you were prepared, if you were in shape mentally and physically, you would get this part. Most of the time I couldn't tell what weight I was. I'm really only talking a couple pounds. But John just had this eye. So I went in and I came home with the part.
The movie 10 is about Dudley Moore, who basically one day hits his midlife crisis when he sees this wonderful, unattainable, gorgeous woman, who is, of course, Bo Derek.
Suddenly, deep inside you, a new confidence is born.
It was a takeoff on a shampoo commercial that was very popular at the time. And these characters would, you know, the man and the woman would run and then embrace and turn, so.
She came out of the water lovely, guys. Said,
Well, what can I say? I don't think I ever got to look at her hairstyle.
Incredible figure. You know, she did look really toned and her breasts pointing upwards like that, and women we knew didn't have that.
And you thought, if Dudley Moore can get someone like Bo Derek, there's hope for all of us.
The hairstyle of Bo Derek, which was tiny, tiny cornrow plaits, all going back, was a hairdresser's nightmare.
Plaits and beads and whatever, and we were like, yeah, but we were doing it for a while.
So there would be lots of little arguments in the playground. Oh, we were doing that from, you know, ages ago, that's old.
When we wore it, it was like a tribal warfare. And when the girls wore it, the white girls wore it, it was like a fashion accessory.
And things like being on the bus. And if everyone turned around at the same time, your cheeks would get beaten by these things.
It was exciting, it was fun, I never took it seriously. I was in the film maybe 10 minutes, so you can't take that seriously, or personally. I can be with the wealthiest people and they can't get doors open that I can just because I was in a film for a few minutes. Well, that was 1979, the end of the decade.
Back to 71.